Welcome back to another episode of Gettem Together Garage. Today, we're doing something kind of repetitive. I know, don't worry. But we're going to do another 2.5 inch in the front lift kit on a Toyota Tacoma. T with the R and a D, you know. And then we're going to be doing a 3-inch blocker right there. For the rear. We're going to start off with this bad boy. And we also got ourselves some wheel spacers. So OMT, Orion Motor Tech. So we're gonna be throwing these on too. And again, that's a YZ or Easy Wheel or YZ Wheel is the brand. I'll put the links in the description again for all 3 of them. But we're doing another MotoFab strut spacer. But I'm not going to bore you guys with the same details I did last time because you already seen it. I'm just going to kind of do a time lapse and kind of zing through it. We got some Cooper, I think these are the Adventure tires. Nope, they're the Discovers. So we got some tires, some blocks, and some sponsors. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of jump into it like that and we'll kind of get this thing done for you guys. So if you guys have any questions, drop them down in the comments as we're going through it. I'll look at them. I'll reply back to you if I can, or when I do, or when I get time to. So, yeah, let's get to it. So as usual, we're going to start off taking the shocks, and then we're going to move to getting the U-bolt bolts off, and also disconnecting the e-brake cable from the leaf spring itself. What you're going to need is a 17mm for the shocks, for a wrench and a socket on an impact to get it off faster. And then for the lug nuts are going to be a 21mm. And then for the e-brake cable bolt to the leaf spring is going to be a 12mm. And we are also going to be using a 19mm for the old U-bolts to get those off. And then as we go through, the new U-bolts are going to be a 22mm that you're going to need to put those bolts back on with the new nuts. So as usual, doing a leaf spring block kit, make sure that you have the tapered end towards the front of the truck, meaning that the side that is smaller in the front compared to the back of the block will go to the front of the leaf spring, and that'll allow for the right pinion angle. So now that we're putting everything back together, as you've seen, we're going to be tightening the leaf spring U-bolts to a factory 90 foot-pounds for the torque specs. So we're going to tighten up each bolt until each one starts clicking at 90, and then we proceed to the next side. So whenever you're doing the rear end lift, what you got to do with the e-brake cable is you're going to have to kind of reconfigure it to fit to the truck correctly. So you're going to have to rebend the metal bracket, which I'm doing in this part here, but you can't see. But it's just so that the brake cable doesn't get bound up and the bracket will not fit unless you bend it to refit. So if you're installing wheel spacers like I did here, you're going to need Loctite, which some kits might give you them, and also should be provided with lug nuts for the wheel spacers as well. And they recommend tightening them down to 140 foot-pounds, which is apparently what a factory Tacoma wheel torque spec is, but that's what they claim to tighten it down at, so that's what I did, and so far no problems. So now that we are moving on to the front suspension, what you're gonna need is a 14mm socket and ratchet, and a 17mm socket ratchet also. For the struts, you're gonna need a 14mm and a 19mm socket to get the struts off. It's gonna be for the bottom strut bolt for the 19mm socket and the 19mm wrench. And then you need a 10mm and a 12mm for the wiring, so you don't disconnect the ABS wires. Then for the steering link and knuckle, you'll need a 19mm socket. And then for the strut spacer bolts, you'll need the 17mm socket as well. So what I found out that the instructions don't exactly tell you is that you have to remove this sway bar just to get the strut out. So that's the first thing I started taking apart, and then I got the steering link out next, and then I'm working on getting the knuckle disconnected from the upper control arm. So you got to take the ABS wire off with the 10 bolts or the 2 bolts, and then you have to get the upper knuckle bolt off, and then you start taking the lower strut bolt out, and then you take the 3 top ones out after that. I found it easiest to start the upper strut bolts first before you try to start the lower strut bolt, just so you can get the holes up top lined up easier. So one thing to note is whenever you go to put the struts back in with the spacers, you're going to turn the whole unit 180 degrees from how it originally sat. That way the holes on the spacer will line up to the top, and the strut hole will line up with the bolt for the bottom. So to tighten the front wheel spacers, since I didn't have anybody to hit the brakes for me to hold the rotors from spinning, I took a breaker bar and pretty much intertwined it between the wheel studs, and I allowed the long part of the breaker bar or the pry bar to hit the ground, so that way I can allow the torque wrench to get up to 140 foot-pounds for the torque specs. Well, there you go again. We got another Tacoma lifted. It's really simple. I got this done probably within 2 hours, give or take, with not including money and balancing the tires. Yeah, as you've seen, it was pretty simple with all the front end and rear end. You can get the rear end done in probably about 30 minutes, if that, if you're by yourself. Probably 25 minutes if you're with somebody, just to make sure nothing goes wrong. But truck actually looks pretty good with the wheel spacers. Everything kind of fills itself out once you put them on, because now the front end's about sticks up maybe about that much from the fender flares, which is not that bad. The back's about the same, so that's really not too bad of a wheel spacer and strut spacer and blocks. So yeah, I'm happy with how this turned out. Again, it looks pretty good. But yeah, I think that's gonna do for this episode. If you guys didn't already, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get up there, make more contents for you. And yeah, hit the like button, leave a comment if you have any questions about anything that we just did, and yeah, just let me know. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you next time.